Well, the second and final day of the Lugano conference has wrapped up with more than 40 nations and multilateral organisations drafting and signing a roadmap for Ukraine's recovery, as Neil O'Reilly now reports.
Standing shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine, dozens of nations, international institutions and private sector representatives have pledged to fund the long-term reconstruction of Ukraine in the aftermath of Russia's invasion. The Ukrainian government told the conference in Lugano in Switzerland it will need around 730 billion euros, and promises of contributions have already been made.
The money will be spent on the day-to-day costs of the Ukrainian government, like salaries of civil servants, school teachers and healthcare workers. The new contribution comes on top of our earlier financial support totaling 140 million euros.
But it's not just about a coalition of the willing making voluntary donations. Some are calling for Russia to be forced to pay.
First, we must generate the financing. We shall find more funds from our own budgets or borrow collectively. But the most adequate and just way is to seize and use Russia's assets frozen under our sanctions. We can't resurrect the people Russia killed, but we have a real chance to make the aggressors pay. Because for once, these assets are kept in our banks and moored on our shores.
Across Ukraine, homes, hospitals, bridges and in some cases entire communities will have to be rebuilt. While the war is still raging, there's no possible timeline for completion of the task, but the international community is now committed to standing with Ukraine until it's done. Neil O'Reilly, Euronews.
Before reconstruction can start, the war first needs to end, and for now there is no end in sight. We're closely monitoring developments on the ground. For us, as ever, is our correspondent Sasha Vakulina. Sasha, we are hearing reports of massive shelling in Sloviansk right now, apparently Russia's focus now as it tries to take the Donbass. What more can you tell us about the areas there in the east that are really bearing the brunt right now of Russia's offensive?
The mayor of Sloviansk called on all the remaining residents to evacuate as soon as they can, if they still can, and as long as they still can, because indeed there are concerns that Russian troops are now switching their attention and their focus towards Sloviansk. He said that 40 houses had been shelled on Monday there. Now, Russia concentrated its forces over Severodonetsk and Lysychansk area, and that part, those twin cities part, between May and July, capturing this way all of the Luhansk region. They already had captured a lot of the region of Donetsk, and this is why, if they now go south towards Sloviansk, this would mean that they're trying to get all of this Donbas region of Ukraine. Donbas, of course, both regions, Donetsk and Luhansk regions, and moving south would mean that they're going to go towards Sloviansk, then they would go towards Kramatorsk, and these are the two main cities in that area that are now controlled by Kyiv.
We heard yesterday from President Zelensky with regards to Lysychansk, already vowing that his forces will retake that area, I should say. But, you know, we've also heard today from UK intelligence essentially saying that what we saw on the ground there from Russia appeared to be a more coordinated operation, a more coordinated offensive than we've seen in the past, which then kind of really begs the question in terms of retaking Luhansk. How difficult would that be for Ukrainian forces?
Absolutely. According to this intelligence update, there was effective coordination at least between two of the groupings of Russian forces, the central and the south one. Now, upon estimates, Russia concentrated up to 30,000 troops in the Severodonetsk and Lysychansk area. And while Ukraine this way sought to exhaust as many Russian troops and forces as possible, there it also reinforced their positions, Ukrainian positions, the real stronghold deeper in the Donetsk region, and as well inflicting that maximum damage and holding on the Russian troops there in Donbas for weeks now. It means also that Ukrainian forces managed to go into rather effective counteroffensive in other parts like the south. And this was confirmed also by some of the advisors to President Zelensky, who said that that's Alexei Arestovich, that he said that taking the cities in the east means that 60% of Russian forces now concentrated in the east, and it's difficult for them to be redirected to the south towards, of course, the south of Zaporizhia region, and specifically the south towards the region of Kherson. That's where the effective counterattacks by Ukrainian forces have been taking place. Also now the conditions for Ukrainian troops are indeed likely to improve because of the more sophisticated Western weapons that keep arriving to Ukraine. And this is also something that they have been waiting for, while the conditions for Russian forces are indeed expected to get worse because of the manpower, because of the exhausted troops, because of the losses, and also because they have to dig deeper in their stocks of rather older equipment on Russian side.